This is Mary McCosker. It's May 12th, 2009, and I'm interviewing Linda Peterson.
Can you tell me your first or best childhood memories of libraries?
We went to the library every week when I was a kid, every week, and then in between I would sometimes go with friends once I was old enough to go on my own. I don't have a first memory, but the strongest memory I have is that in our little library, the books that were considered adult had orange stripes on the back of the pockets because they still had pockets and cards. Yeah, exactly. So they had orange stripes on the back of they were adult books. And when I was, I think, 10, I wanted to check out Ulysses because I was very interested in mythology and I thought it was about Ulysses. And it had orange stripes, so I got up to the librarian and my parents were there, and she called them over and said, now this is fine if Linda wants to check this book out, but I need to make sure it's all right with you. And so my parents said to me, are you interested in reading this book? And I said, oh, I was really interested in reading this book because I really liked Ulysses and I really liked his other name, Odysseus, but I wanted to read about it. I thought there would be all this cool stuff in it. And it had on the inside, the end papers, it had like drawings of the mythical Ulysses, not Joyce's Ulysses, but the mythical Ulysses travels, and then they also had a map of Dublin to show those travels too. I said, yes, I was really interested. And my parents said, they took it back up and they said, if she's old enough to be interested in this, she's old enough to read it. So yes, it's fine with us if she reads it. So that was my memory about, libraries and parenting, that you gotta know your kid, you gotta trust your kid, and that the library is a really great place to find that out.
Did you read it?
Oh, I read it.
Did you get it?
I didn't, there was so much I didn't get. I certainly didn't get the orgasm on the beach scene. But I loved it. I loved the language of it. And then when I read it again when I was in college, there were parts of it that would come back to me and I would go, oh, that's what that means. And I still love the end of it, the last chapter, when Molly Who said, no, the whole book. Says, she's always saying no to her husband. And in the whole last chapter, it's yes, I said yes. I love that.
Where did you grow up?
Southern California.
So reading was important to you as you grew up? Did you like to read a lot, I would imagine?
I loved to read. Everyone in my family is a reader.
That's cool.
There were books all over our house.
Did you have an awareness of community when you were young?
No, I did, because I grew up in a neighborhood where everybody's parents looked out for everybody else's kids. Even though we lived in LA, which was very big, the community that we lived in was relatively tight-knit. Within that, LA is like a whole series of villages. So I did have a great sense of community.
So you went up through high school in Southern California.
Mm-hmm.
Then you went to Stanford.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, post-grad or?
Mm-mm. Well, actually, got out of college and I was going to go to graduate school in literature, but we'd gotten married, needed to work. Mm-hmm. But while Ken was in law school, I started a graduate program to start taking classes at San Francisco State, which I loved. But one of my professors said to me, I don't know why you're doing this. You have a better job than you get with, a PhD, unless you really want to teach. So, what I realized is I really just wanted to read. I just wanted a structure for reading for the rest of my life. So, I don't know. I probably took 2 years of classes. And maybe one day I'll go finish a PhD, but that was it.
What are your work experiences? What have you done adult-life in terms of employment?
I've always done work that has to do with communication. My first job out of college was I edited a newsletter for Metropolitan Life. And it was really fun because it was the old days where if you, with the editor, you also worked with, I don't know how we got it designed. I guess we had a designer. I worked with a designer, but I would go to all the press checks and I learned about printing and I learned about interviewing people. I learned about talking to people I didn't know, which was a great thing to learn. And then I had kind of a series of jobs like that. And then in late 70s, after our son was born, I launched this business we called Peterson and Dodge then. It's now called Peterson Skolnick and Dodge because we added a partner. And we started doing communications mostly for corporate clients. And then over the years, that kind of morphed so that we focused on things we really liked. So now, that business still exists. It started in '79, so this would be our 30th year. Yeah. And most of our clients are art museums and music organizations, orchestras and things like that, higher ed, environmental groups, and healthcare, and travel. And, you know, my job is to help them figure out how to tell their story.
What attracted you to Lafayette, and how long have you lived here as you leave?
We moved here in 1989. I didn't want to move here at all.
You were living in the city?
We lived in the city for quite a while, and then we lived in Oakland for 14 years, which I loved. But my parents had retired, my dad had retired, and they'd moved out here, and they moved to Walnut Creek. And we had our son in private school in Oakland, and it's very hard to be a Democrat and have your kid in private school, I think. And we were getting less happy with the school. I mean, it was great when he was young because it was a year-round school, and we traveled a lot, and we could take him out for up to 2 months of the year anytime we wanted, so he went all over the world with us, which was great. But then, you know, kind of going, well, we want him to be in a public school. My parents live out here. So we started coming out here, and I was pouting, you know. I felt like, oh my God, there are all these white people. I'd never lived in a community with so many white people in my life. I didn't grow up in one. I certainly didn't live in one in Oakland. And I thought it was Republicans. And, you know, I had many stereotypes about it. But we kind of fell in love with the area and this piece of property, to have an acre, because I was a gardener, and to be able to garden, and my parents were out here, and I thought, well, we'll stay here till Ben gets out of school. And
Here you are.
there we are.
Defining the goals of a community as a place of mutual support, shared values, and acceptance of difference, how do you see Lafayette meeting these goals?
I think it's getting better all of the time. I really do.
There's more Democrats.
That's good.
Republicans.
More Democrats. And I think all kinds of people are attracted here for the schools. And I think, you know, it doesn't matter who you are. If you have kids, everybody wants the best for their kids. And so I think, so there's a lot of shared values around education, which is where I think why the library was such a powerful notion. And I just, you know, it's like I had to let go of my stereotypes. This place is really, people are so generous to each other. I mean, you know, the way people responded to Gwen, the way, you know, you look at the story that Lamont and Sheila have, and how they took this tragedy and this grief and turned it into something so positive. And, you know, I've just really grown up. I think that this is a place that's values-based.
What are your earliest memories of our library?
Well, I had the library card from, you know, the very beginning. But the librarian who was there when we first moved there wasn't very friendly. And it didn't feel like a very friendly place. So I would go in and get my books and go home. And that was kind of the end of it. It was not a place to hang out. And then Ruth Bailey recruited me for Friends.
So do you use the library still? Do you check out books and stuff?
Absolutely.
I mean, you spend your life there, but you personally use it
I
as
personally
well.
use the library.
How do you feel a library serves a community?
Well, I think it serves a community in lots of different ways for different times in your life. I think for younger people, and it was this way for me when I was a kid, and absolutely like this in college, it's a refuge. It's a place to be with people you care about, and you can be alone and work on your own thing and be together. And I think that's a gift when you're young. I think for older people who are not maybe seeing lots of people every day because they're not taking kids to and from school, maybe they're not working, maybe they're, you know, just their empty nest, whatever it is, I think the library becomes it's a place to run into people. And then I think it's a place to go find, you know, you get curious about something, no matter what it is, there's the library, you know. And these these library systems now where you can get books from anywhere, and it's just, I think it's a place to go get into really good trouble.
So you've really been involved in our library, maybe specifically the last 6 to 8 years, probably. Could that be, aside from being a patron, you've
Yeah.
been involved in all
Yeah.
the yucky stuff.
At the opportunities.
The opportunities.
Yes, right.
So what other community events, projects, organizations have you been involved in? I mean, just give me a couple.
Okay. So on the board of youth homes, which serves kids in foster care, and I was their first mentor. I started that program, and I've been on the board for probably 10 years. I was the board chair of the AIDS Project of Contra Costa. Followed your cousin Scott Hafner in that job. I'm currently on the board of the Stanford Women's Club of the East Bay, and I put on their Books on Review event every year for them. On the board of the Pacific School of Religion, which is one of the schools of Graduate Theological Union. And then my husband and I have both, for many years, sang with Cantare con Vivo, and I helped with marketing and stuff for them.
And in your free time. So I don't need to go back to the 40s library because you won't have anything to say about that, or really the building of the current library. Because
I wasn't there.
no.
No?
So now we're going to be looking at the 2008/9 library.
Yes.
Were you involved at all in that 1966 study? I guess was it the vision or whatever?
No, I wasn't.
Okay, the task force. Okay. What do you think created the change from the limited number of people named as contributors to the larger number that came forward? Once we got this thing going, I guess.
I think there were two things that made a difference. I think one was getting people to understand that a library was still relevant. Because there are this is a community that's privileged in the sense that if they really want a book, they can go to a bookstore and buy a book, mostly. So I think it was tapping into the feelings that people have about education and literacy and where books can take you and what it means to be a lifelong learner. And a lot of people just associate those ideas with their university. Like that was their golden moment for many people in their educational life. And I think what happened was we started being able to get people to see that that's what the library is. The library is your university for the rest of your life. It's your community center for the rest of your life. And then I think the consortium, which said, not only is that what a library does, and not only is library usage going up instead of down, but we have the coolest concept in the entire freaking world here,
And that kind of came from?
Well, Bob Fisher and Roger
Okay.
Falcone really cooked that
Okay.
whole notion up.
That's good.
But it had to be explained, which is what we've been trying to do.
So why is this new library important to you? I hope it is, after you've talked the time you've put in.
Oh, it's hugely important to me because I feel like libraries need friends. I mean, literally they need friends, and that's why we have Friends of Lafayette Library, but they need friends. They need people to talk about what libraries mean to them. There are all these great collections of famous writers talking about libraries. James Baldwin talking about the great lions on the front of the New York Public Library, and Amy Tan's first published piece when she was 8 or 9 years old was about the library. So there are all these people who love libraries, and the more there are, because the more people who love them, the likelier it is that we're going to preserve them, because libraries tend to be underfunded and sometimes dismissed. People they have old notions of them as fuddy-duddy places, and Mary and the librarian running around and going, shh, and, So I think this library will be important because it is saying, do you want to know how important a library is? Look at what we have done here, and look, you go to a Sweet Thursday, and you can't find a place to sit. Or park, because people are there.
How did you first get involved in the library, in our library, and what roles have you played in this whole new library thing?
Okay, so Ruth Bailey recruited me to be on the program committee, to be program person at the library, and I don't know, quite a while ago. And so that's how I first got involved. And then with some other people, we cooked up, after trying a bunch of different other kinds of programs, we cooked up Sweet Thursdays because it's a library. Duh. People like to read. Let's get writers in there. And that was actually a cool idea that I really think came in large measure from Gloria Linhart and Mary Miller and people like that. But anyway, a lot of fun. So I got involved as a friend, and then my heartless, cruel friend, Mary McCosker, said, "Wouldn't it be fun to be president when the library opens?" And so then, I became president of the Friends Board. In addition to that, I think Lois and Gwen, let me just see if that's Ken. Okay, so where were, so that was Friends. And then Gwen and Lois, there was this early planning to, they had gotten past the vision, they had gotten past this group Ann Groden had collected, and they were starting to put together like a planning committee for how they would handle the campaign. And several people knew I had done a lot of work on capital campaigns. So Gwen and Lois asked me, and I said, "I'm so overextended, I'll come to one meeting."
Never did that.
So.
What have you enjoyed most? Just pick one thing about participating in this new library.
If I think about a moment, I think it was the day of the first kind of community kickoff, and walking around the streets downtown and seeing all those people having so much fun. And they were all there. Some of them were there because they loved the library, and some of them were just there because it looked like fun, and some of them were just there because they wanted, a place to go.
Or they just happened to be there.
Or they happened to be there, and it was just like, this is some 19th century idea about barn raising or something. That's how it feels. It feels like a barn raising.
Who have you observed making a real impact? Any particular personalities that stood out? There's a lot of people.
Yeah, there are a lot of people. And, I think that Ann Groden and Kathy Merchant and Gwen are incredible, and they've had like official leadership roles. But what I also love, I love our city manager, who just, it's not like this is just another project. He himself is this incredible lifelong learner. He is in the best possible, he's a geek. He's a wonderful, wonderful geeky guy in the sense that he just loves stuff and books and learning. And he has just embraced this library. So I've loved watching him. Roger, oh my God. I don't think Roger has a bad idea in his head. He just has great ideas and this very quiet way of bringing people together. And then the other person I think about, just because I didn't even know her, Karen Mulvaney, before this process started. And she's one of my dearest friends.
She's awesome.
Yeah,
Gracious.
And she's just an example of somebody who, you just put more challenges on her plate, she just steps up to the plate.
She gets it done sometimes.
And she gets it done. And then, people like Anna Appert, who just did so much hard work about, raising money, and she's so self-effacing, and she just, it's like if you want to get something done, you ask Ann to do it, and she just does stuff. She is the least showboaty. She's just a wonderful person.
You can count on. Is that this one again?
No, that's my work phone.
Moving on. What transformation have you seen in Lafayette about the new library? How do you think it's affected the community and
I think people have come together across generations, because what I've seen is that there was a kind of older group originally on the campaign cabinet,
Right.
but then all these young people came in to run events, people like those first cluster of Tsarinas and Elizabeth Domagowski, and I love that. I love seeing these people across generations
and neighborhoods.
and I feel like it's been a very unifying thing. And people say the schools are unifying, but I never had that experience when Ben was at Campo. There are too many of them, and yeah. And it was just people with kids.
Right, which leaves out a lot here.
Yeah.
What's most exciting to you about this new library?
I'm excited about the building itself because I think it's going to be very warm and it is going to make you feel at home. And then the other thing I'm excited about is I think there is no limit to the kind of programming that can go on there. I think we're going to be able to do anything. And that's, I always thought, and I still think it's narrow to not leave Lafayette. I mean, I know Lafayette's a wonderful place. Walnut Creek's a great place, but, you know, our life is still largely oriented to the city and Berkeley and Oakland. And I think people should be involved with the cities. But by golly, I think there's going to be so much going on here that you could make the case that you don't need to leave, you know.
Why do you think that people in Lafayette have responded so enthusiastically to this library project? Just the excitement of...
I think it's the excitement of having a shared thing to work on because we don't have anything. I mean, there are Martin Wine Festival people, there are, you know, youth sports people, there are school people, there are, you know, the arts people, but this is the only thing that encompasses everything.
That's good. Brenda's theory, or her little mantra was that communities build libraries, but libraries build community. Can you comment on that?
I think that observation is the right observation, that, you know, communities build libraries, but libraries build community. And I think we've seen it here for the reasons I just described, that it gave everyone a shared something to work on. And the reason that that libraries are the great genius of cultures is because they're free. I mean, I love museums, I love music organizations, but you have to pay to go to most of them. The only thing you can do that is free, that is shared across really many cultures, and certainly in America, thanks to the early work of Carnegie, are libraries. They are the, you know, my analogy is it's the real realization of, you know, on Cheers they used to say it's the, you know, place where everybody knows your name. There's a Frost poem, The Hired Man, where it says home is the place where when you go there they have to take you in. Libraries are the place that always take people in. Always. I mean, the door is always open, and that's why I get all excited about having more hours.
I hope. It was said the internet would kill the printed word and libraries would become obsolete. How is our library going to avoid such a fate?
So, about 17 different ways, but the two simplest ways are that people are still attached to books, that are objects, because you can't throw well, you probably could, but you don't throw a computer across a room when you're disgusted with it, and the other is that besides a love for books and a love for community, because mostly people are alone with their, but of course that's why people go to Starbucks with their laptops. They don't want to be alone, you know. But also because libraries were early adapters to technology. I mean, people think of libraries as old-fashioned, and they were the earliest.
The card files went to the computer.
Yeah, and the access to other kinds of information resources and to non-print media and all sorts of new media. You know, the fact that you can check computers out, you can check, there's some library that was having the San Francisco, Maine. I was there the other day, you could download books. They had a book downloading station.
Wow.
You could go and download or read.
Wow, cool.
How cool is that? I mean, there is, again, libraries, I think, are using technology, and they're using it still in ways that don't have to look like ugly, hard industrial spaces. They can still be warm, comfortable places.
Okay, have I left anything out? Do you have anything you'd like to say in conclusion, or?
Well, you know, the cliche about volunteering is that people get back more than they give, and, you know, I think that is true. And for the library, it was absolutely true. Absolutely true. I mean, I went from feeling like this was a very nice place to live, but the rest of my life was somewhere else, to feeling like, you know, this is the community I've grown to just love, and it's mostly because of the library. It wasn't because of our son's school. I mean, I'm very fortunate because I have great neighbors on Reed Drive here. And, you know, and that was wonderful. I've always loved our neighbors, but to get involved with our neighbors in the library. Because all up and down the street, I mean,
You're it.
we have friends, board members on the street.
Foundation board members.
Foundation board members. We have, Roger, of course. We have Ruthie Thornburg and the neighbor, the notable neighbors thing. I mean, it's brought our street together.
Well, part of that you've cultivated too, which is cool.
Well,
Because your enthusiasm has been contagious.
Yeah,
But
I
that's
have,
nice.
I have tried to, because I think, well, who wouldn't want to be involved with the
Well,
library?
you got Ann back too, that's really cool.
I'm excited about
Yeah,
that.
I am too.
Don
Us too.
Don Tatson gave a talk at I don't remember, it was like it was some anniversary of his service or something to the city council, and they did a little party for him, and I was there one day because we were speaking on behalf of the library, and he said something about the smartest thing he ever did was, he said, people think I'm all over the library. The smartest thing I ever did was realize that this was going to be the coolest thing that was happening to our community, and I did not want to be off that train. I wanted to be on that train. And that's what I think is great. People have gone, I'd like a piece of that. Almost no one says no when
No,
you
it's
ask them
true.
to get involved.
It's true. It's true.